Hmm. Hey, coming through. Okay, weird. I had a weird build to quality thing going on the stream, but looking good. Mm-hmm. Not really. Video looking okay for you guys? Weird. Yeah, I don't know. Anyone coming through? Looking good. Okay, cool. How's the audio? I went back to the old mic because the other one was a train wreck. Sweet. So yeah, this one's like a total layup. Because I mean, so there's been a couple articles. There was one last year. I think it's the same guy kid that wrote it, talking about influences on new gaze or heavier shoegaze or whatever. Um, and like, look, I get it. Like, there's a whole another generation now talking about music, finding out about music, and all that stuff. And so a lot of the old like mainstream stuff, like bands that got deals for being shoegaze bands, which is not Quicksand, but just to understand where I'm going with this, um, you know, kids don't know who these bands were, and they're not going to. Like that's fine, and they may not even like them. Um, but it's not like all Cocteau Twins and My Bloody Valentine and Ride and like the super obvious stuff. Um, it's it was a thing that had broad stylistic sort of differentiation even back then. Like in the early 90s, late 80s, there were tons and tons of bands that were doing heavily layered guitars because of My Bloody Valentine and because of Ride and whatever. And like not all of these bands necessarily identified with or were pegged as being shoegaze the way that I'm not going to talk about Swerve Driver. Most people have heard of Swerve Driver, but there were lots and lots of smaller failed bands, let's say, or bands that were sort of shoegaze adjacent but heavier. And so it's the easiest thing in the world for me to talk about. So I can just blow through a bunch of this. And what I've got up here is actually a hardcore band. So this is a band that formed. It was on Revelation Records and was like a late '80s New York City hardcore band. It was essentially like Walter was in Gorilla Biscuits and like there was a guy from Bold and it's like a whole like all stars of New York hardcore trying to do something different. The other band that comes out of it is Helmet. So like part of Helmet had been in Band of Susans, and at one point Band of Susans was like an early sort of Love and Rockets wall of guitar thing. They had a couple of songs that you could consider being sort of inspirational, to when we think about modern shoegaze, right? And so we're at a point where the bands that were really trying to bring this back or play with it in the early 2010s, like Were, Nothing, all these bands. I mean, I remember all that happening. That was when I was sort of at my peak public music critic persona as Shallow Rewards on Twitter and shit. And, I like, and even Deaf Heaven, of course, and Sunbather I mean, that's more to do with envy and, kind of layered, and liturgy even, um, heavier, bands like that. But there's this whole problem where a lot of the kind of failed bands in the late 80s and early 90s aren't getting brought up. We just talk about the Monoliths, the Cocteau Twins, the Slow Dives, and all that stuff. So, Quicksand was a hardcore. They were intended to be a hardcore band, but a hardcore band with huge walls of fuzzy guitar. And the reissue of this eventually that comes out, has a cover of the Smiths' How Soon Is Now, which I wasn't a huge fan of. But like Too Official is really the key song on this. Too Official is an absolute, like, literally modern shoegaze. This is what bands would be doing right now, and are doing right now. you know, the head to wall is more like a halftime, you know, post-hardcore song. But all of these, Transparent to Official, Omission was the original single. The version here is like beefier and better produced, and so is like a more suitable analog to what you'd be hearing today, and to what bands are trying to do today. The key difference, and I talked about this in the Discord when we were prepping in the week, kind of, the key difference is that back then you don't have digital audio workstations, and you don't have a lot of like workable compression, and compression is not like, compression is something that's left for like heavy metal, and you don't have people playing with compression in the way they are now. Compression is now like a part of almost every guitar band's sound, whether they're a shoegaze band or a heavy band or what. Like, everyone's got compression on anything. I mean, the band Phoenix, the pop band Phoenix, who I absolutely loved, they were using sidechain compression on their drums on like a 4/4, you know, pop jangle, you know, fucking album. And it sounded great and everything, but it's just compression, exciters, limiters, all of these tools, they would never have and were never used. Everyone wanted reverb, you know, except for obviously Kevin Shields, who's his own, you know, conversation of Brian Eno-isms or whatever. You know, everyone wanted reverb. They wanted artificial space and the spaciness, and like Slowdive is the, you know, absolute eventide, you know, cathedral reverb patch for fucking all time. And of course, you know, Eno worked with them. Compression wasn't really there, and certainly not the way it is today back then. And so the sound of these bands is really, really different from what you're going to be used to today when you think of heavy shoegaze or like bleary, heavy, you know, heavy guitar, dreamy stuff like this. Is Siamese Dream the biggest shoegaze adjacent record? It's certainly the most. I mean, it's Alan. So, I mean, Corgan literally gets the guy who did My Bloody Valentine because of the enormous, like, mind-blowing aspect of Loveless that we still talk about today, that kids still talk about today. And I've said this a million times. The idea that the music that came out when I was 15 is still, like, considered really important, and what kids are talking about today is super weird. But, you know, people still talk about the Velvet Underground, so I'm sure that's weird for, like, you know, boomers or whatever in some respect. So anyway, you know, Quicksand is one where, you know, like I say, this is explicitly post-hardcore, but it is majorly, you know, if you hear it now, you're like, oh yeah, they could be on tour with, you know, any of these bands that are in these articles that are getting hyped up. Is it a used CD slam dunk? Kind of not. You're going to find a ton of copies, but it's like a known, you know, see right here, there's people indexing it in all kinds of different ways. I rebuilt my computer, so some of my filters are going to be screwy probably. But you got people calling it post-hardcore, emo, hardcore, hard rock, you know, alternative rock. So yeah, in the States here, there's only 14 copies of it on CD. That's crazy. This was such a big record. You know, I don't know. You got a lot of people looking $8-9 for it. It's totally worth it. Like, you know, if you don't find it on Discogs and you're doing, you know, actual retail CD diving and you see it, absolutely get it. I mean, this thing's great front to back. The band totally fell off after this. Manic Compression was a total disaster. The song Delusional was like, and there's one more, Landmine Spring, which was really honestly a holdover from Slip in so many ways. I saw them on this tour at fucking Saratoga Winters. Delusional's okay, but like this band was just totally immediately out of gas, which is, you know, which is a bummer. And then like later on he does, you know, Rival Schools and all this other crap. No interest in it. The first EP is legit like straight NYC Revelation hardcore, and it sounds that way. But Slip is this like attempt to cross over. You got grunge going on, you got the Smashing Pumpkins and all these other heavy sounds coming on, and it really does kind of slot in there. But anyway, there are so many bands that I can go into to talk about, you know, failed chancer shoegaze bands. Revolver. So Revolver was an English band that like everyone hated. They were considered complete posers, bandwagon chasers. But Caroline in the US and really Virgin repackaged their 3 EPs. This was the thing back then. Like all the shoegaze bands like Ride and everybody, their move was to do like 3-song or 4-song EPs, and like we're gonna build up a fan base and whatever. Like the whole physical media era is so rad and fucking funny for that reason. But this is the compilation of their 3 EPs. It was called Baby's Angry. It was brought over by Caroline in the US. And the song Venice is just one, like, you know, I don't see kids talking about it. Yeah, I don't know, see kids knowing about this band, but they were part of the shoegaze like rush, like, because Nirvana has not really publicly even happened in early '92. There were tons and tons of bands like this, you know, fuzzy, bleary, dreamy guitar bands with good-looking singers, male or female. That got deals and were getting hyped. And shoegaze was like a really big deal. It was like shoegaze and dance pop were like majorly the shit for underground teens, like 88 to 91. And so there's a lot of this. And it's great because like a lot of this stuff you can get really cheap. This, you know, the issue here is I don't know how many people bought it, meaning like they went relatively so far under the radar that there's not like a million copies of it because they just didn't do well. But you know, here, $4, $5, like it's totally worth that. They do a cover of Strawberry Switchblades Since Yesterday. It's actually really good. I've always loved it. It's a little bit chintzy, but you know, it's good. I mean, look, Strawberry Switchblade was kind of a goof band. They weren't really that talented and they were kind of shaky. But like, if you hear Heaven Sent an Angel, man, that is some hilarious shit. I mean, this is like OG 1989, like dreamy blonde mop top singers, you know, girl song. It's so good. Like, you got to hear Heaven Sent an Angel. Like, I mean, especially if you're familiar with C86 and all the shit that went on there, early Primals and the Jangle bands and even the early Wedos. This is like straight in that alley. But yeah, the main reasons you want this, Venice is a killer fucking hard shoegaze song. Awesome drum fills, killer lead, climbing guitar lead line. It's fucking killer. You definitely want this for cheap, no matter how you can find it. But you can get it for $4 in a lot of stores. So, Revolver's definitely one. It was somebody in the chat. Revolver was a bad copy of the Telescopes. That was a band I was going to mention. So the Telescopes are a lot earlier. So the Telescopes really get going. Essentially, they're like, hey, have you heard Spacemen 3 and the Jesus and Mary Chain? Looks like it. It's just like one of those fucking facsimile Jesus and Mary Chain bands that started up. And like by that time, Spacemen 3 had already started getting bigger. So Creation eventually picks them up. They're just like, yeah, fucking fine. I mean, this band is literally like a band that's beating on Alan McGee's door. Like, we're totally supposed to be on your label. And he's like, oh, fucking whatever. And he finally puts out one of their records. But it, you know, look, early on they had some really good shit. I'm not trying to be an asshole. They were pretty fun, and they were short lived. Their intentions were like pretty obvious. They've done like the whole reunion shit, whatever. But there's a compilation. There's a couple of compilations. Any one of these, this is the one that I think is probably the best to get. And I have no idea. Yeah, it's probably not easy to find, but this has got like, you know, I mean, they didn't do the Spacemen Mega Jam thing. They were kind of like intentionally going in the opposite direction and trying to do super short songs. And I mean, that was sort of also part of JMC. But there's a whole bunch. The Splashdown one, this is what I'm thinking of. This was a big reissue. Unfortunately, I don't think this ever got put on CD. It's just a vinyl comp in Italy. But, you know, you know, if any of the comps show up and they're cheap, this is the one. Yeah, sorry, I clicked on the wrong thing. That was the vinyl. This is what you want to find. So a 2 CD set for $12. Come on, that's worth it. That's $6 a disc. And, you know, this is all of the good stuff. This is when they were on Creation, getting access to Creation and Alan's input. And it's like all their best shit. It's even got a nice little peel session at the end. But, you know, you can tell when you look at these, like what their big stuff was. Splashdown was supposed to be a big song, etc. So yeah, I mean, this is one, just because somebody mentioned it in the chat, but Telescopes is one that, like, you know, I immediately think of Loop after that, you know, because they were another one around that time that was putting out similar sort of post-Spacemen 3 shit. You know, A Gilded Eternity is a monster classic in this respect. Again, this isn't like fuzzy shoegaze explicitly. It's still got a lot of like reverb heavy, like big reverb drums. And, you know, but I mean, look at like songs like Vapor and Breathe Into Me, like, you know what you're going to get. But this was the one. The Gilded Eternity was their big hit. The early ones aren't bad either. Fade Out, I think, is arguably as good and in some respects better. The Loop had a little bit of like kind of nugget psych to them. They're not a shoegaze band, but they, you know, they absolutely get looped in with the marketing and popularity of all that. Um, yeah, I don't know what comps you're seeing around Tron, but like basically any comp is fine to get you started with them if it's cheap. Um, you know, like all these bands, they're around for 2 years. They do 2 or 3 records, and that's it. And Loop is one of them. They just did a comeback record. I haven't heard it, but I did hear about it. You know, I'll check it out. They need to make a point of checking it out actually, because who knows, it could be really good. But yeah, I mean, this is another classic. You know, Creation Records era, 88 to 91. Shoegaze adjacent sort of band that you can check out, you know, for very little. A Gilded Eternity, even in the States. I mean, in the UK, that's a drink coaster. You should have no trouble finding that. In the US, let's see, you know, I'm seeing, you know, $6-7. You know, the cassette, interesting. You know, certainly 666. You know, $6-7 for this stuff. You know, if you want to start building and learning about this, I mean, go on Spotify and check it out and see if you think it's worth $6 or $7. But they were totally part of this whole thing. Those kind of, you know, bands that are trying to figure out what's next, sort of, as everyone, you know, shoegaze becomes this proposition, and we go away from, you know, Jesus and Mary Chain, and we go into all this other, you know, drum machines come in, guitar effects come in, everyone has different ideas. And there was this band Swallow, and this is a band that like so desperately wants to be on 4AD. From their album art, it's very obvious. This band was not great. I mean, it's like super learning drum machine loop stuff, but the song Love Sleep is really good. I mean, this is like canon shoegaze comp shit that like you should know it. That song really did well. Minstrel is also okay, but like having a song called Tastes Like Honey, come on guys, you can do better than that. Louis Tree, I mean, I'm not going to get into what all these people did with their careers or whatever, but they did another digital comeback record, in like 2000. Oh, it's right here, 2009. But yeah, like they were a rough trade band and wanted to be on 4AD really desperately, and then got on 4AD. The first Hush EP, this one, and Blow, you know, if you can find them and you're searching around, like, again, talk about like period correct shit you would have bought if you were around when shoegaze was happening. You would have had this shit. CD EPs, you know, again, not as many people bought them, so they're harder to find. Reunion album's not that bad. Okay. I'll have to check it out. But yeah, it's a, you know, it was a band that was there and doing their bit, and there's just tons of them, and you know, it's not something you have to spend a ton of time on. I mean, one of the ones that is absolutely you can get for nothing that I find really compelling is Catherine Wheel. It's their first 2 records, because after that they sell out. Well, not sell out. They try and make a hard pivot into Britpop with this awful 3rd record in '95 that was such a fucking catastrophe. But this one, the OG, Ferment. I mean, the song Black Metallic, if you haven't heard it, is as important an anthem as the Smashing Pumpkins Today or fucking anything that crossed over at this time. This song was enormous. This was on daytime MTV. Like, normies were totally fucking clocking this, because it rocked. You know, it wasn't posy, it wasn't drenched in reverb. It's a fucking massive wall of huge guitar in the way you think of like, you know, a classic Townsend windmill player. You know, and it's not just Black Metallic is the thing. You know, they had Salt, they had a couple of really solid singles. The title track is great. Like Shallow, like Texture. I mean, this album is really fucking compelling. It wasn't marketed like shoegaze, you know, it was like, this is a good rock band that's like now, you know what I mean? It was a very different thing. But if you heard it now, you know, if you listen to Black Metallic and Salt and that stuff now, like, and you think about what people are referring to as shoegaze or heavier shoegaze or whatever, this is totally part of the canon of what informs that, whether any of these bands have heard it or not. The one that's most interesting to me, and I mean, look, these are CDs you can get for nothing. They were on major labels and they're everywhere. The second album, Chrome. So this actually got picked up on a ton by sort of like bands that I've kind of mocked or derided in the past, like Starflyer 59. This is massively informing that whole kind of mainline 4/4 shoegaze. Like when you think about like Four Against or the bands that, you know, sonically to me, they get lumped in with it, but I don't see it. Like here's a difference. Like a small band like Ecstasy of St. Teresa, right? Ecstasy of St. Teresa is like a, you know, one of their records goes for like $80 or something, I'm sure, if I look it up. They were they were the band like similar to Lilies. They're a band that here's My Bloody Valentine and is like just put 90 tracks of feedback and shit and call it a day. And like they were okay, but that's part of the lineage of the Jesus and Mary Chain, My Bloody Valentine, Wall of Sound stuff. Catherine Wheel is kind of, they're treading a more mainstream rocking line while still having a lot of the guitar texture and distance. And the key thing here is there's a song called Strange Fruit on this that is phenomenally good and that so few people have heard. There's also like some jammy stuff. There's Ursa Major Space Station. Crank is another one. It's a tight 3.5 minute ripper. The title track is good. This album already starts to fracture a bit because like it's, oh, also the other thing too, the singer is Bruce Dickinson's like nephew or something, so that was like super kept under wraps that the singer is related to the guy from Iron Maiden. But it was yeah, it was a really funny thing. Rob Dickinson, yeah. So it was kind of like they really did not want anyone to know this. It was like a super fucking under the wraps deal when Catherine Wheel were going initially, and then, you know, they made their own name and whatever, and then they completely took a fucking dump on record with this piece of crap. Oh my God. Like you couldn't give me this record. It was so bad. And it was such an awful about face. Like they just dumped it. He sounded like Gavin Rossdale at times. Sure, I could see that. But yeah, the first two Catherine Wheels, man, like, and this is the thing, there's distance now. Like back then people would have been like, that's not cool. You know, My Bloody Valentine's legit. Catherine Wheels bullshit. That's for posers. Like, you know what I mean? Now that we have the distance, it's just like, it's good. Like it was just good rock music. The marketing around it kind of sucked. And if you were a kid and you felt targeted by that or whatever, you probably were like pushing back on this a little bit. And like, you know, you wanted to show that you were into deeper, cooler stuff. And like, you know, like that would be Ride. You know, Ride was like the fucking shit. For 2 years, they were like, I mean, they had girls screaming at them like a fucking teeny bop band. I mean, they were gorgeous looking dudes, all with their own identity. Laws was like fucking Keith Moon back there wearing the fucking mod shirts. Like Ride was just on it. I mean, Cocteau Twins were so regal and older and removed. I wonder what I could get for this poster if it wasn't all fucked up. But you know, you think that's bad? See the Adam and Eve cover. Yeah. Oh my God, Catherine Wheel, man, they fell off in every direction. This here. Boy, I don't need that. But anyway, so another one, a band that is really contentious if you're like involved in any of these scenes in any way, is Medicine, because the main guy in Medicine, Brad Lehner, he's made some enemies. I mean, hey, so have I. But he's rubbed some people the wrong way, let's say. But like the first 3 Medicine records are totally, again, a band that hears My Bloody Valentine, a band that hears shoegaze and is like trying to figure out how to do their version of it. Shot Forth Self Living, you know, Aruka was the big sort of thing from that, and 5 with the number 5, strangely, whatever. Miss Drugstore also. These 3 were like good. The first album is like crazy harsh. It's more, I think, more of like a Mercury Rev in terms of noise rock or whatever. But on the Buried Life, they had this tune Never Click, and unfortunately the version on here is needlessly overlong at 6 minutes. But this is like an absolute, the Pink, the first song, and Never Click, these are like absolutely enormous canon shoegaze songs from this time that, again, Medicine's gotten around. They're not like obscure. Kids are aware of them, but I don't know that they're aware of like Never Click being a legitimately, like, everyone knows My Bloody Valentine soon. Okay, you should also hear Never Click by Medicine. Like, and I'm not even saying like this record's that great. There are a number of songs I like and revisit. It's not like My Bloody Valentine good, but Never Click is truly amazing. The thing is there's this edit of it, and it's super fucking hard to find. There's this amazing edit of Never Click that was on a compilation. Yet again, how many times have we talked about compilations? And I never was able to find it. It was issued as a single. So here's the key thing. Find this. All right. And this is the problem. There's one copy in the States for $15. It's an authentic, rare, unplayed CD with exclusive tracks. Come on, dude. Give me a break. But this is what you want. So, I mean, if you're not in America and you're in Germany or whatever and you get this for £2, great. Get it in Norway. This 457 edit, it's not just an edit, it's mixed different, of Never Click, is a total fucking monster classic. So if you go look it up on YouTube or whatever, find the 5-minute 457 edit. Looks like it's out there. This song is canon fucking gorgeous. Amazing loop, fuzz, like pink noise shoegaze, so good. And they really kept it together for 3 straight albums. The Her Highness record, All Good Things, is awesome. There's a couple other good tunes on this, but on this one they start doing more with, you can see like dub. They start doing more with backbeats, like Portishead Has Happened, let's say. But yeah, this band's first 3 records you should be able to get for nothing. They were on American, Deaf American, you know, whatever. Massive distro in the United States for $2-3, you know, aggregate, get the whole thing for $10. These first 3 albums are killer. And then, you know, again, that edit of Never Click, I don't know how you're gonna get it. Time Baby was another good one. This is a band that for nothing, this is how you get a view into this is what shoegaze looked like and sounded like at that time. There were tons of bands doing this. It wasn't just the big ones. And, you know, a lot of the sounds you're listening to today, you know, are already out there. And there's nothing wrong with it. It doesn't invalidate what's happening today. Great, you know, whatever. Go run for Cover Records. The other, another one, I should mention, I have mentioned them before. I don't know if I've mentioned them on the Used CD channel, but I used to love them. That's not them. That's a different one. Was an English band that totally made another band that, just like Catherine, well, far worse than Catherine Wheel, made a 100% immediate Britpop pivot, like right out the gate. Their first record even barely sounds like the shoegaze stuff, which is these EPs. This River Never Will Run Dry, Reprise, Cool Breeze, and Jack. This 1991 output from Moose is compiled in America on Virgin as the Sonny and Sam EP. Get it immediately. Like, This River Never Will Run Dry is one of my favorite songs of all time. It's also a rewrite of the Allman Brothers' Melissa, and I didn't realize that was why I loved it so much, because it was, you know, it's Eat a Peach is one of my dad's favorite records, and I grew up hearing Melissa, which is just E climbing up on a 2-bar split. It's just E, B, whatever. It's a really cool strumming thing you don't realize. If you go an extra fret on a E major, you get this awesome classic shoegaze chord. That's the chord in This River Never Run Dry. The song that really blew it up is Do You Remember? Do You Remember is an 8-minute, you know, building shoegaze classic, you know, influenced by My Bloody Valentine, but way more musical. A lot of like bells and honking things and shakers and things. Oh man, it's such a fucking, their Butterfly Collector too is really cool, because it's not like explicitly shoegaze. It's a little more original. It's like it's got kind of Donovan's 60s Nuggets thing again. Like the bands that had a little bit of psychedelic awareness of Nuggets and the old stuff, they really put some really cool shit out. But yeah, Do You Remember in This River Never Will Run Dry? You absolutely want to check those out. This isn't like hard shoegaze in the way the other bands I've been telling you about is, but it's one that I wanted to mention because somebody was mentioning Telescopes and Loop, which aren't like hard either. It wasn't my intention, but if, you know, open to go down rabbit holes, I could fucking do 25 hours on shoegaze. It's like the thing I know the most. Did you guys know that a bunch of Swerve Driver stuff is off Spotify, by the way? Go check out Son of Mustang Ford and see if it's on Spotify for you. Right now, I think Mezcal Head, either they reissued it, something happened, because I can't get Swerve Driver right now on Spotify. Anyway, so, you know, somebody just mentioned in chat that they saw a typo of this. So look, I'm not bringing this up because Hamish has passed away. It sucks. It's really rough. He had a tough go. And you know, he's got a brother out there, and it's awful. I mean, the guy's bedrock New Zealand, flying on the clean, but he moved to New York and he started this band. And to me, Belter Space is the most predictive of anything going on right now. I mean, I've been blasting this at all the bands I work with that play this kind of music for years. I mean, anybody who's followed me and knew about Shallow Rewards and the things I used to do, 10 fucking years ago or whatever, Space has always been one of my huge stumps. Now, they were licensed, signed to Matador in the US, and their key record is Vortura. Now, you can get this probably for nothing, and for a while, it'll be out there. The song X is like the one. I mean, this is, a lot of people don't understand, again, similar to Catherine Wheel, there were bands doing like heavy guitar wall of sound that weren't dreamy. Like, they were rocking the fuck out. And X and Shadow on this, these two songs are just perfect. I mean, it's just classic drone, distortion, like, detuned E string. It's just so fucking good. This band was so important to me in college, explicitly for that reason. Like, look at this. It doesn't even say shoegaze here. When I heard the BFBP, like when this came out over here on Matador, I was just like, holy shit, because this is a different mix of X. Actually, it's a better mix. It's a little brighter. You want to get this for sure. When I heard this, I was just like, yeah, this is what my high school bands wanted to sound like. Like, we couldn't do, it's $7,000 of studio equipment guitar effects, but we could like crank a fucking amp to the point where it was about to explode, put a little reverb, DOD reverb pedal on that shit, and we could get close to Space. So, initially Tanker, Nelsh, and to a lesser extent Thermos, this is still like growing out of the Gordons, which is a New Zealand band that originally, coming out of New Wave and the Clean, the members of its members of those, Brent McLaughlin and stuff. And so the Gordons has a catch-all compilation if you're curious about the lineage that leads to Space. Space itself, there's a hard peak with Robot World and Vortura. Like Eep, Begin, oh my God, so fucking good. This one's harder to find, weirdly, because I'm pretty sure it's a Matador just like the one after it. Yeah, I mean, Matador licensed it. I don't know, maybe it didn't sell as well. People haven't kept it, I don't know. But these two records, Robot World and Vortura, look out for them. Because, I mean, if you've never heard this, and you think about what's out today and what's getting called shoegaze or heavy shoegaze or new American shoegaze, or can't stop talking about shoegaze my whole fucking life. No one's ever stopped talking about shoegaze. You're going to be, like, pretty fucking shocked, honestly. Like, it's just like, holy shit, this is all of these bands. They all sound like Space. And, like, Space, it's, at the same time, Helmet's big. There's Helmet stuff that's got aspects of this, like Sinatra. Fuck yeah, man. Like Sinatra Live. Get a rip of that shit. They were still great up into sort of the last, not the last, but the last one that did anything over here, Whammo. When you get to Capsule and this Solar record, the last two, it starts to get a little more post-rock. The song Argonaut was a big, not big. The song Argonaut is, so there's a greatest hits compilation, but it's New Zealand only. It's flying none only. Yeah, TikTok kids are going to start, like just like Duster, right? Now, all of a sudden, you're going to see this on TikTok tomorrow morning. Oh my God, of course I know Space. Capsule's my favorite record. The song Collider changed my life. Argonaut and Collider are really good, and Shield the opener is great too. But this is where it starts to be like, oh, we've heard Yola Tango and Mogwai, and you know what I mean? Or maybe not Mogwai, but they've heard slower, more spacious stuff. And so it starts on Whammo and Capsule, and especially Solar 3. They're really doing essentially like post-rock. But this drone, it's a really intentional thing, their sound, this drone sound on Vortura and Robot World. Cannot recommend it enough. So yeah, those are some ones I'd recommend you pick up. Most people know, I'd say most people know Pale Saints. I mean, I don't think I need to, and they're not heavy. They're really precious. But it's, I mean, there at various points, there's another band, again, in an adjacent way. I mean, look, you could say the Posies Frosting on the Beater has aspects of shoegaze as much as it has power pop. But there's a period where 11th Dream Day do a couple of records that you could maybe say have aspects of this. Again, it's all kind of, there's post-rock aspects to it, whatever you want to say. This band's been around forever. I mean, their first album, Prairie School Freakout is the one, but this is like you're talking like back in the kind of Heshy Homestead Records days on Prairie School Freakout. The reissue of Prairie School Freakout is amazing. I mean, and this is like a band you think of like bands that were influenced by Sonic Youth. But when you get to like Live to Tell and El Mudio, there's a little bit of shoegaze to some of this. Like particularly, You Know What It Is one. There's a couple others on this where, you know, again, adjacent. This record got heavy promotion, El Mudia. This was around like a lot. And again, after this time is gone, you know, there's a little bit to it. Like they're not out there to be a shoegaze band. They're not a wall of sound band. But when you think about bands that were like kind of exploring adjacent territory, et cetera, and aren't getting talked about now, like there's far more people that have heard of, I would argue, like what, Black Tambourine or the Field Mice, or like the bands that are coming out of like C86, DC, you know, the DC and like Velocity Girl and all that stuff. Those bands get wreck all day. You know, not a lot of people talk about this band. I mean, they weren't the greatest band in the world, but they were running for a long time and they made some great shit. I loved Eighth too. I mean, very little to do. This is almost explicitly, you know, like you're getting into, you know, like Dirty Three territory by this time, but Eighth is great. You know, it's a really cool band. Ursa Major right on the back of El Mudio again. Super solid, heavy record. Love this stuff. And again, it's more like kind of indie and post-rocky than like shoegaze adjacent. But a band I'd mention definitely is one where, you know, you can find this run here when they signed to Atlantic. You can find a lot, like Beat wasn't really one of my favorites, but this run of 4 records, even though they come off Atlantic back on, they're just like, this didn't work, and they go to City Slang. These 4 records, I'd say, if you can find them for cheap, and you should certainly be able to find the Atlantic ones for nothing, absolutely worth checking out. And a band, again, I don't see a lane where they're getting, you know, brought up. I mean, all the bands that everyone wants to resurface, fucking Astro Bright, Bethany Curve, Allison's Halo just reissued their stuff. I mean, these were like college kids. Like I remember these bands. Like I don't, like Gainesville college kids. Like, I mean, these are bands that were around for like 15 years, had major label deals. It's a whole different world. Just revived Das Demon. There you go. I hear a lot of Hum going around. Yeah, no, Hum's a big influence on all this as well. No question. I mean, we've talked about that. I've probably talked about that in streams. You know, the 2 big Hum records are super easy, constant. Bethany Curve and Allison's Halo got the captured tracks reissues. Yeah, I'm sure Sniper hit that. You know, to his credit, like, I think it's cool that Mike Sniper was like, I want to reissue these bands I liked when I was a college kid. That's what you should do. Like, run your label selfishly. Good, you know, good move. Bethany Curve, man. Oh my God. I remember that song Drag. Also, another band a lot of people don't realize was an absolutely fucking OG huge shoegaze band, the Boo Radleys. Yet another band that sold out for, like, hardcore sold the fuck out, like complete hit a wall, like hard cut, wake up Boo, you know, let's make $1 million shit. And they didn't make $1 million, but they did well. Early fucking Boo Radleys, Everything's All Right Forever and Giant Steps. These were brought over to America by Columbia, I think. You can get these for 50 cents. Like, and they're legit OG at the time shoegaze. You should own these. They're good. You know, like, there's a bunch of really good songs on this. Skyscraper is one of my favorite shoegaze tracks when I was a kid. Like, cause this, I could get this at the mall. And it wasn't like I knew who they were. I looked at the cover and I'm like, yeah, Chapter House, this is probably shoegaze. Fuck it. You know, lawn mowing money. Skyscraper is such a fucking good tune. You know, Lazy Day, Fire Sky, there's lots of good stuff on this. And Giant Steps, it's like shoegaze isn't over yet, but they know it's kind of coming. But Lazarus was kind of the big single on this. It was sort of too big a single. Like, Alan and Columbia or whoever it was tried way too hard to make this band happen on the Lazarus single. But yeah, it's these first 2 records. I mean, especially Everything's All Right Forever. are definite shoegaze. Now, this sort of 12-inch thing, similar to like the very early Brian Jonestown Massacre shoegaze tribute record. This is not going to be easy to find, but it all ends up on a compilation. Kaleidoscope was great. Eleanor Everything was like they're like, the song that got them noticed. And Rough Trade reissued it on CD as some of it, the Kaleidoscope single. This is one of the worst covers you will ever see in your life. I forgot about this. Oh my God. Rough Trade, man. Appalling art direction. Jesus Christ. Wow. Yeah, shocking, right? Anyway, so for that early stuff, I forget which one it is. There's a couple of comps. It's the Lazarus comp. That's what it is. No, it's not, because Eleanor's not on this. The Lazarus comp is a bunch of B-sides and crap. It's a CD EP. Is it Learning to Walk? No, these are comps that have stuff. Was this it? Is this it? Does this have Eleanor Everything? No, shit. Weird. Maybe they got into a rights thing and they only licensed. They must have only licensed Kaleidoscope up out of it. I don't know. Anyway, that first record is fun. It's like a really great, like, hey, we're gonna be a shoegaze band thing. But it's not easy to find. It's certainly not easy. You're not gonna get it like, it doesn't exist on CD, and so like forget it. But everything's all right forever and Giant Steps you definitely want. And then after that they become like, fucking Blue Peter shit, like they're doing ridiculous jangle shit. Yeah, Barney and Me was a good hit too. Paid $20 for 3 tapes pre-pandemic. Come on Kids is not bad. Yeah, it's okay. They become cake. That's a good way to put it. They really just become like silly, like, go mad bullshit immediately, and they just had to, because you couldn't keep being a shoegaze band after 1993. That shit was fucking over the second Oasis came out. Another one does get a lot of rec, but mostly in indie circles, is Bardo Pond. Tommy Gun Angel, infamously on Lapsed, is a major drone guitar attack tune, but this is a band that is a nightmare to collect. They're on Bandcamp doing like remixes of their shit themselves and reissues, and like it's just because they have the whole like true head psychedelic rock thing. They did a million goddamn records. A lot of people feel like they peaked on Matador with Dilate, which is a phenomenal record. They go all over the place. Like they go to post rock too, and especially later they just become like a straight up jam band, and that's fine. I like them up to On the Ellipse. I think I have most of this. A lot of it, they started doing a lot of self-release stuff that was really hard to find. But again, this is all on their Bandcamp, so realistically, it's probably the way you want to get it. Bufal Various, I like this. I always liked this record. It was impossible to find forever. It's finally been reissued, enough times that, now you can maybe find it for reasonable money. Again, if you don't care about physical media, a lot of this stuff is on their Bandcamp. But the run of these two records, Amanita and Lapse, and even into Dilate, this run here, this is the run if you're looking for stuff that's like heavier, sludgier, in places shoegaze adjacent. These are the 3 you really want to get. Amanita, Lapsed, and Dilate, and they're just wonderfully rich, heavy head, rock, noise rock that in places is really sweet and shoegazy. But again, a band that it's not a band that's like fallen into obscurity the way that like a band like Revolver, or the Chance or English bands, which I didn't get into many of them. I intended to, but you get distracted. What was another one I was going to talk about? Oh, I guess I mentioned them before. This is not a band that gets called, shoegaze really by anybody. But they absolutely were proto shoegaze. The early Straight Jacket Fits, Dunedin band, is like drone rock, and the song "Life in One Chord" is just such a fucking classic. I got this off my sister. The original cover or the reissue cover, whichever this is so much better. It's the original cover. you can get these again due to Rough Trade having distributed it all over the world. Um, Downward is heavy. People have heard about Hum, so yeah, it's tough to get that for as cheap as it should be. I mean, they were giving that away when I was there. But Hail, the title track, Life in One Chord, great. Hail Melt is also so good. This is a band you should definitely check out, and you can check out for cheap. And all three of these Blow is not as successful, unfortunately. It's not bad. I like Falling, and I like a couple of these tunes, but the first two, Hail and Melt, if you see them, you should be able to get them for not much. Such good stuff. And again, really like super proto drone rock, similar to the way I was talking about the Gordons before, and the early Balter Space records. This is a big thing that New Zealand bands are doing with drone rock before shoegaze becomes a term. It's like drone guitar rock. Like Spacemen 3 is a drone band in the tradition of Velvet Underground, but they're slow. So fast drone is like this thing that's completely distinct and presages shoegaze. And I've mentioned before the first Love and Rockets record, Seventh Dream of a Teenage Heaven, the song Dog End of a Day Gone By. That is like 85, and it sounds like it could come out tomorrow. Like, I've mentioned this for the fact that it rips off the drum beat from Making Plans for Nigel, but Haunted When the Minutes Drag, the title track, Heaven Above, but I mean, this is a must-own record. I mean, personally, they never topped this. They never even come close to this for me. I actually have this on vinyl. I got it before. I mean, I don't know what impulse or reason there would be for this band to be, not basically a super cheap, easy collectible because they were on Beggar's Banquet, had massive distro, but you absolutely have to own this record. Dog End of a Day Gone By is of the songs you could count on hands that were shoegaze before shoegaze was shoegaze. That's one of them. I mean, I'm not talking about the bands like that are mentioned in these articles, and the bands that aren't, like I said at the top, were. And I guess like Weed's not really mentioned, but they're more, kind of like fuzz overload, some Dinosaur Jr. influence in there. But yeah, I mean, there's a ton of stuff that you could be collecting for almost nothing that was on majors during the shoegaze period. I mean, like Swerve Driver Get Wrecked, but I don't hear him mentioned that much. I wonder, looking at it, like what, because they, I mean, they got licensed over here really well. Let's just take a look. And this record isn't, I mean, you should absolutely have this. Like, if you have Loveless, you should have this. I mean, at the time, I thought they were too heavy, and I was like kind of biased against them. I came around to this band much later. Yeah, I mean, like $10 mostly for a used copy. It's worth that, but Beato tax. Oh, Rick was talking. Beato was talking about him. That's not going to help. Seventh Dream is taxed in the UK. That's weird. Yeah. Oh well, that's a bummer if Beato is talking about Swerve Driver, because yeah, that's tough. This record's not. I mean, the first record, Son of Mustang 4, Rave Down, Feel So Real. They're really shaky. Sandblasted was a single too. They're really shaky on this. Like, the drummer can't play for shit. Their drummer sucks. Swerve Driver's drummer was fucking terrible. I mean, in the studio. Like, he was fun to watch live, but he was rushing and dragging all over the fucking place in the studio. If you listen to Rave Down, it's fucking painful how bad he is. And he's not much better by the time of Mezcal Head, which is really inexcusable because he's had 3 years to fucking practice. Obviously, Duel and Never Lose That Feeling. Well, that gets appended in the U.S., but anyway, it's their first two records are must-owns. They're fantastic. I think in the U.S. they added, in the U.S. edition of this, they added, oh wow, they had a digipack reissue and remaster. Get that. Well, Never Lose That Feeling is the one that goes on forever. It's like 12 minutes long, and they add it. It was a standalone EP, but in the U.S. they demanded that it be added to the original album, which for some reason I'm having the hardest time finding. Why is it only showing the promo? Weird. Ah, there it is. So here's the A&M demanded that Never Lose That Feeling get added to this. And that's a huge win. But I mean, again, it's like all shoegaze. Oh, Alan Moulder did that shit. I mean, he did everything on Creation Records. And most of the good shoegaze was on Creation Records. But yeah, this thing, fucking absolute must. If you can find this for you know, $8 or less, get it. Yeah, Laws is the man. I mean, yeah, no, most shoegaze drummers were terrible because the whole point of shoegaze was it was supposed to be really busy. I talk about that in actually I talk about that in the Cure, one of the Cure podcasts on Shallow Rewards, that, you know, shoegaze is like overplaying drums, because otherwise if you're just playing a 4/4 beat over this stuff, it's boring as shit. The way they got energy into it was by doing the you know, the cursed, the forbidden beat. You're not supposed to play that. Like, that's the forbidden beat. Any drum teacher will tell you, like, you're not supposed to play that shit. But that's what shoegaze was. And it was also inspired by, you know, by Rennie, by the Stone Roses. Like, having a drummer that good, people were just like, fuck. Like, everyone wanted to play like him. Like, Elephant Stone, and, like, it's just fucking crazy. And, like, seeing him live, he was, like, even better. So, I mean, you know, the Stone Roses obviously are not a shoegaze band, but they were really influential on it. Waterfall, like, forget it. The Chapter, so here's the thing. You mentioned Chapter House. They're big. They've, you know, people know Pearl. I wrecked for him in the original shoegaze video I did. I don't think, I would hope that the majority of young kids, you know, trying to be authorities about shoegaze are aware that this is a linchpin fucking record on the same level as Cocteau's or My Bloody Valentine or whatever. I mean, this record is front to back fucking killer, and it sounds so much more like all the reedy American precious bands like Alice in Taylor. Like, look, I love them, but Chapter House and Slowdive, because Rachel Goswell sings on Pearl in a lot of this album, and it's produced by Robin Guthrie of Cocteau Twins. This record is just monster. But here's the thing: when you mentioned the drummer, I called out, yeah, Robert Smith loves, it's the single Mesmerize. Robert Smith in Guitar Player magazine in 1992, when he's talking about Wish when it came out, he's like, I remember one night I just played Mesmerize on loop and just got totally drunk and passed out on the floor. This song's incredible. It's a standalone single. I mean, look, you can get this EP for 60 cents right now. Just fucking turn off the stream and buy it immediately, because there's no other way to get this. I mean, there is another way. There's a compilation, but it goes for stupid money, and you want the original object if you can get it. Like, why not? This song is so fucking classic, and it was super hard to find at the, you know, for a long time, because it was a CD EP only, and those didn't get released over. So here you go. This is what happened in the US, right? CDs in the US. RCA had them over here, and they only released this as a promo to radio. I actually have this. So it says now available on the CD and cassette Whirlpool. It's not. So it's just this really failed, fucked up thing. I actually have the original, the Creation CD EP. I did get it. Just because I actually love the album art too. It's a really cool, beautiful cover. Especially when you consider how shit most covers were at the time. But yeah, Whirlpool, the debut, Robin Guthrie blessed it, told him all his fucking guitar patches. Like, if you hear fucking April, oh my God, it's just like Robin Guthrie was like, here's everything, guys. You can have the golden, you know, fucking calf of my rig. And he turned all the knobs. And I mean, it's essentially like a Cocteau Twins B-side. Falling Down was like the rocking, you know, ride song. That was their big, you know, like, we're a tough band. But, you know, Treasure, Something More, they're all like, they've got a lot more Slowdive, like I said, and Cocteau's kind of guitar twinkle to them. The thing is, I talked about this in the first shoegaze video I did. The song Breather is one of my all-time favorite songs. The drums are like literally Keith Moon, The Who. It's this monster fucking wall of sound. It's so fast. You can't even believe how fast it is. I'm pretty sure the drums are comped. I've analyzed this song so many times. I'm almost positive this is comped. The fills are too exact. They're too the same. So I'm pretty sure, unfortunately, this drummer was not that good. I never saw him live, so I wouldn't know. Someone who has in the chat, hit me up. But yeah, I'm pretty sure this is comped, unfortunately. And, you know, Pearl is the PSK When the Levee Breaks beat that Susie later uses for Kiss Them For Me. But yeah, this is a must own, and I mean, I would assume most people would know that. Shouldn't be hard to find. Distributed by a major in America. It was sort of hard to find for a minute, but an absolute classic. And again, just like Ride, it's a band that starts with, 4 EPs with similar album art. Like, this is how we're going to brand ourselves, guys. It's so late. They all did the same fucking shit. Like, they all did the same move. They all came out with EPs. Ride did it. Chapter House did it. Like, Alan McGee was obsessed with this as the way to, break your band. Like, we're going to eke out 3 EPs in a year, man. And it was so pervasive that other bands did it, imitating Creation. Revolver, Moose, they all did the same shit. Moose also, before I go, because I already covered them, one thing I would recommend, if you can find it, their original EP, there's 2 versions of it. It got banned because it has the girls from the Brady Bunch on the cover. Get this shit on 12-inch. I have it. It's really fucking cool to have it on there. This got shut the fuck down pretty quick. You can find it, not that hard, certainly on CD. Hut was like a fake indie and Virgin thing, I'm pretty sure. So you can find this, but it's a really iconic cover from the shoegaze era. There's 2 different ways to get it. There's the This River Will Never, just 12. I think it's a 2-song. Yeah, it's a 2-song. And they both appear on other releases. But yeah, and then, then the other EPs are kind of like, whatever, but that one's iconic as hell. You should get it. And I mean, look, like, there's no need to talk about one of the biggest shoegaze bands ever, but like, this is the move. This is what they did. Brand it, same look. Like, what's that band? Hotline TNT just did this like last year. Same shit. The guy which band is he from? But they just did the same move. Like, same artwork style, change the colors. It's just a thing people do. It's really funny. And it all kind of goes back to this. Play, Ride, Fall, these 3. The guy from Weed, yeah, I loved Weed. And like, there's some cross-pollination with some bands we're working with and Hotline TNT. That stuff's really harsh and crazy and overdriven. It's not like, I'm not saying they're a shoegaze band, but they had a bunch of EPs that similarly pulled this move. And I hadn't thought about it. I hadn't thought about that because I was thinking of doing the same thing for one of our bands. And then I was just like, no, I can't do that. Like, I thought back and I'm like, the reason you thought about doing that is because every shoegaze band did that. And other shoegaze bands or bands now have, whether, consciously or subconsciously realized that. So, all right, I'm gonna cut it there. I mean, like, literally, I could do 150 shoegaze streams. This is just a fucking layup because I've been spending the entire week editing, finally, the Cure podcast to end Modern Cure. So I don't like listening to podcasts that are more than 45 minutes, so it might be a 2-parter, but I am gonna be publishing in the next week or so, hopefully, the self-titled 413 Dream, and then like a discussion of modern current Cure and the songs that have already come out for the upcoming album. And then it's done. And then I can go back and do the 3 big records I never did, which is Head on the Door, Kiss Me, and Disintegration. It's what I always intended to end it on. But I mean, this has been going on for like 2 fucking years of me doing Cure podcasts or more. I struggled so hard to do this one. Like, I interviewed Jeff Rickley from Thursday looking for some input. I had the interview I did with Lowell Tolhurst from The Cure, and yet nothing was giving me like a good kick in the ass or thread that I felt I could use to get this done. So I just ended up like talking for 3 hours, and I'm trying to edit it into something. I mean, it always goes this way. Like, I get it, and then once I lay the music in, it's like, it works, to the extent that anyone fucking likes any of this shit. But anyway, thanks everybody for turning up. Hopefully I covered some records you hadn't heard about, and that you can get for cheap, and build up your used CD collection and maybe extend your understanding of the different, the boundaries of shoegaze were a lot broader at the time than people realize. And it's not like there was great stuff in all these examples, but they're outlier bands that don't get brought into those conversations. Like, you're not going to see people on TikTok, bringing them up. And I mean, maybe you will if this channel ever takes off, but anyway, thanks for turning up, like I said. And yeah, we will be back at it Sunday at 2 p.m. Eastern for the potential EU crowd. And yeah, thanks for coming out again, and we'll see you later. Bye.